here's the thing. If you want to know what standardized tests prove, they do. They prove so much. They have so much amazing data. But here's what they prove. They prove the income of the families in the neighborhood of the school. Hi, welcome. It's Dawn Goldstein from Freely Reading, and today I'm here to talk to you about literacy then and now. We're going to take a look at some of the technology that we had back in the 1700s and take a peek at who the influencers were during that time period. And more importantly, show you that there's a way to connect with an audience synchronously, asynchronously, face to face, or in some combination of a hybrid model, and do that successfully. I hope I get to show you that in this episode. And right now, I'm going to just share my screen. Episode 3. To reiterate, reading, rating, speaking, and listening all go together. They are reciprocal, and there's a feedback loop where one contributes to the success of the other. Before I get too deep into conversations today, how are you really? Tell me in the slideshow or in the comment box. If you're joining me in the slideshow, the asynchronous link for this content is NLZDUM. On the slideshow, you either can tell me you're not in a good space, you are in kind of a meh in the middle, you're not in good space, you're not in a bad space, or life is good. The reason I ask this question is because it helps you to know where growth is taking place and where also there are some concerns that we want to take a deeper look at. We also talked last week about who are the struggling readers. First of all, we have people with information processing concerns. What is normal anyway, anymore? However, we do have a lot of data and research that tells us when students are having those issues, and we should be able to spot them in kindergarten or first grade. Your strongest teachers need to be in first grade if you're in elementary school. That is the grade you either leave reading or you're not reading. And frankly, if your kid's a slow developer and I was a late bloomer, that timeline can definitely change. But we want to spot it early because of the importance of good beginnings, right? The better we serve and care for children at younger ages, the better chance they have at being successful when they get older. And of course, we can't forget the value of books and reading in the home. The 3 million word gap happens by kindergarten, meaning the number of words that brains are introduced to, whether they hear them or see them or try to read them or try to write them by kindergarten, there's a 3 million word gap between high socioeconomic status families and low socioeconomic families. So the next question on the slide is: mistakes are a part of learning, true or false? If you were with me last week, you know that I believe that mistakes are 100% a part of learning. Why? We expect them, we respect them, we inspect them, and we correct them because no one's perfect the first time. And true learning is messy and it takes a long time. It takes passion and perseverance and problem solving and time. Time is essential. We can't expect students to just pick things up and come back to normal post pandemic. So I made a mistake last week in episode 2 where I couldn't see my slide and I missed the most important fact that I wanted to say about new literacies. And I also made a mistake, which is why I put the mistake question in there because it reminded me to say it. That's how I roll. I said that if you're a Gen X or older, that the kind of school that you went to, I said it backwards on last week. What I was trying to say is this: you had a fraction of what students today have in your learning environments. What they're expected to do and what we were expected to do are two totally different worlds. And media literacy is next level needed for all citizens. The digital literacy and internet safety is basically an idea that we have to teach students the ability to use technology competently. Competently is the key word there. Right? We want them to interpret and understand digital content, interpret and understand digital content. And we want to assess that same content's credibility, right? Think of how much goes into that. And then we ask them to create, research, and communicate with all the right tools. When I went to school, I didn't talk on the phone with my teachers. I didn't text message my teachers. I wasn't asked to participate. If I raised my hand, it's because I wanted to, right? There are very few people on this planet that aren't aware of the internet and have some access to it. And what are we as educators and leaders supposed to be teaching in that realm? And I want you to, like, I laugh when I read this slide because the next slide is what's wrong with America and the world. But I digress. There are 6 things that we have to teach to increase digital literacy and internet safety: responsibility and respect, authorship and plagiarism, how to protect your privacy, common expectations like netiquette, the importance of your digital footprint, how photos are digitally altered and how alteration affects perceptions of health and beauty. That's media literacy. And I could talk for a long time about each and every one of those points, but I'd rather, instead of telling you how we are a do as I say, not as I do society, I will go to the next slide, which I really ask you, if you're listening to the podcast, try to go and look at the video options for my podcast, because there's an element that you're missing if you're only listening. On the screen in front of you, if you're watching, you have 2 magazines. One is Girls Life and one is Boys Life, and these are exact covers. I didn't alter them. In fact, one of them has like an address on it, but don't worry, it's not mine. But look at the Girls Life magazine. It says, first of all, she's in what I call the toilet pose, which is like you're sitting on a toilet, and except you're on you're on a cover of a magazine. And I always say, like, don't do the toilet pose. It's a very common pose, for the record. I don't like it. It is a Girls Life magazine, but Olivia Holt is on the cover. And when she was on the cover, she was no longer a girl. She was a grown woman, or at least a young woman. The captions on the magazine are fall fashion you'll love, 100 ways to slay on the first day. Next one, wake up pretty because mornings are rough. And then best year ever, how to have fun, make friends, and get all A's. Confessions, my first kiss. At the top of the other side, it says your dream hair, next level tips and trends. Then it says bye drama, the friendship rules and squads swear by. No, the friendship rules squads swear by. I think it says hashtag squad, but it's very small. The new denim checklist, get ready for, and then it goes on. And there's another one on the bottom I can't really see. So that's the girls' side. The boys' side, and of course the girl is just decked out. She looks gorgeous. Olivia Holt, her hair is perfect, her makeup's perfect, her styling is perfect. Everything but the toilet seat pose is perfect. And of course the words. Now let's switch to the boys' side. Imagine at the top is a big old, what is that? Some kind of industrial ground moving machine. In the center is like the stealth plane from our military. We've got fire captain hats, we've got microphones, we've got laptops, we've got stethoscopes, microscopes, police badge, dentist who's cleaning a Doberman's mouth with something, science speakers, a brain, money stacked, some type of propeller. I'm just kind of going all over the screen here. And then I don't even know what that thing is. Maybe that's a calculator. I don't know what, I have no idea what's about the calculator. So in the boy's life, right? In class, what I ask students to do is rewrite this. What would you do to, oh, I forgot the main title of the boys magazine. It says in big black letters, black and red on this page, explore your future. Astronaut, question mark, artist, question mark, firefighter, question mark, chef. Here's how to be what you want to be. Okay? Gender stereotyping, right there, people. I've taught my girls you could be any of these things. And honestly, if I had boys, I would say you could do any of these things. Now, that might turn some of you off, but to each their own. Once my students in class just they go to town, just tearing up those two magazine covers, then I show them Girls Life, which I wish I could give her credit where credit's due, and I'll have to like put it in the show notes. So it's the same magazine on the left, but on the right, someone redid the whole cover, like some graphic artist redid it. So she put a girl who is age appropriately correct for this cover. She is wearing, she's standing tall. She has a normal smile on her face, very little makeup, if any. Her hair is exactly the way we wear our hair on a daily basis. Nothing special, nothing that took too much time. And listen to the captions. Instead of fall fashion you'll love, it says girls doing good. Instead of 100 ways to slay on the first day, it's 100 ways to help others in your community. Instead of wake up pretty, it says wake up hungry. Healthy foods to power through your day. Best year ever gets transformed to best you ever. How to have fun, make friends, and get all A's transforms to be yourself, work hard, and get better grades. And then instead of confessions, my first kiss, real girls smooch and spill, it says confidence, my first miss the big shot and still win. That boom piece, like, that is a lengthy discussion with teenagers and girls and boys and all genders, all sexual orientations. Why can't we teach kids that mistakes are a part of learning? And that's why I love this example, because instead of like my first kiss, it's my first miss. And what better thing to read than how somebody overcame a struggle, right? Your first kiss is not a struggle. In fact, for most of us, it's not even that special. Anyhow, moving on. Instead of your dream hair, it says your dream career. And then instead of by drama, the friendship rules squad swear by, it says next level planning and goals. Why drama? Taking the stage for hashtag self-expression. And on the bottom, it says the new dreamer checklist instead of the new denim checklist. The other one said, get ready to hear, I love your jeans. And then on the other side, it says, get ready to live your dreams. And instead of, here's your quiz, are you boyfriend ready? On the other side, it says quiz, are you ready for AP classes? My favorite part of the whole remake is on the top right, right below the title Girls Life. It says really small, suck it, girls' life. And I love that part. I never usually point it out until someone in class recognizes it, because I like them to have that little aha moment. But because we're in the podcast, I had to say it. And moving on. So I think I've made my point that we can talk about respect and responsibility all we want, but if we don't model it, then who's dreaming?
And now it's time for our word of the week. Let's dive in and learn words deeply. Because it's not how smart you are, it's how are you smart. The word of the week is dust.
Is a contronym, meaning it's one word that it has its own opposites. And if you see the dust in the air, that has one meaning, that's a noun. And then you sprinkle dust, that is a completely different meaning. And you can have a positive connotation of dust, like Tinkerbell's fairy dust, or a negative connotation of dust, like a dust storm, which can be quite scary. So next, no, I want the next slide. And of course, boom, it wants to play it again. I'll have to cut it. I keep saying I'll have to cut it, and then I don't cut much. All right, next example of dust. Here we have some delicious looking croissants. And of course, someone is dusting powdered sugar all over the croissants. The act of spreading the powdered sugar is the verb dust, right? But if we were to try and wipe up and take away or remove the dust on the counter, that's the opposite. One is adding and the other is removing. Which one is it? It's both. All right, so I made my point. I will get out of that and go back to my other slides. So yeah, I think and here's the slide that tells you what it means, right? Dust, tiny particles in the air. Maybe you thought a fairy. She does both noun and verb. She adds particles and she's the verb that sprinkles it and adds it. She's the noun that actually has the noun in her hand that she's spreading around, right? Opposites. Same word that can have opposite meanings. Now, it doesn't matter in language development whether you're learning sign language, Italian, Spanish, English, they all have the same structure of language. And learning sign language for children, even who are not hearing impaired, will help develop their language skills, because the skills you need to develop hearing language are the same skills you need to develop language without sound. That is a point that I make, a distinction that I make, because language is communication. Language development occurs the same way whether you can hear or not. There are these are the levels of language development, and we have phonetics, which is actually, do I want to go through all of these with you? I'll just tell you what they are: phonetics, syntax, semantics, morphology, pragmatics, and phonology. I'm not trying to teach these to you. I'm just telling you this is parts of it. So the sound of language, the structure of language, the study of words, the order and in the inflection of language and words, and then how context contributes to the meaning and how we can study speech sounds. These are the basics of any language, right? Order and inflection matter. Now, if I'm trying to teach someone to learn a new concept, a new theory, a new vocabulary word, I would use this active learning strategy, which is in a classroom, you can do a think, pair, share, which is you put two people together and you give them the concepts. Like maybe we'll say, let's go with syntax, which is the order and the inflection of words and sentences. So I would say, okay, go explain to your partner what syntax is. And I have already explained it and said, syntax is like Yoda, and some languages, they put the verbs in front of the nouns, and it depends on the language. Also, Morgan Freeman is a great example of syntax. If he reads anything, his order and inflection, the way he says everything just sounds differently. That's syntax, right? It's very recognizable. So then I would say, go off on your groups and explain your understanding and perspective to your partner. Then listen while they repeat it back. And then you kind of give them a scale, like on 1 to 7 is this scale. Did they repeat it back accurately? And if they did not, what were they missing? And then you ask them to do it a second time. And by the third try, they know the word, they know the concept, they know the theory. It's another way to get them to speak and say the words, because you can't just, the professor and the teacher who just gets up and talk, the talking head days are over, right? We need instruction that is more engaging, more interactive, more interesting, more timely, more friendly, and more strategy and evidence based. And the evidence is, well, even our high achievers, remember that data, 37% are at or above grade level, even they aren't getting everything. And that's because we aren't teaching it the way that learners need to be taught. Now, this is my favorite slide in class, but I'm going to skip it. What it does, because I don't have a live audience, but what I do is I have usually 18, 20 kids in class. They get a red flag. I play this video that teaches about privilege, class, and social inequities. And this coach asks, if you click on the link, it'll take you to the video. The coach asks a viral video, it's like 3 million views. He asks a bunch of questions like, stand here, and I put everyone on the left of the soccer field, stand here in this goal, on the far left, and every time you can say yes to a question, move your flag forward. And on the real video, the kids are like stepping forward. And then it's a race at the end. He blows the whistle, and of course, the end zone is over here, right? The goal line is over there. And if you didn't get to move forward because you didn't have a tutor, your parents weren't married, you didn't get to school based on your grades, all those reasons leave you way back here. And then the whistle blows, and some of you are all the way up here, and you just, boom, you're right there, you won, right? And he has the students finish the race. And whenever I do this in class, inevitably, it's a spread out across the whole field. I have privilege and inequity all in the same class. And it wakes up usually the student with privilege. I had one who I wondered if because I show the flags as they're going, and it kind of, everyone's like, whoa, I didn't even move my flag. I know exactly. I mean, I barely move my flag at all when I do this activity. I didn't have any privilege, right? I had to work for everything I have. I'm the first in my family to go to college, in fact. But this is an eye opener for students, and it's an interactive way to, instead of just showing a video, I'm asking them to participate in that same said video. So I'll let you hear just a couple of seconds of it, because you've probably seen it. Hold on. So if you've seen this, where he has everybody line up, and he has them all race. And then as he asks the questions in class, I have students move their flags. I'm not going to ask you to reflect on today's activities so far, because we haven't done very much, but this is the slide where I usually do that. It's a way for me to get students to clarify where their learning took place, where the learning took place that day or that session, and where we need to pick up next time, which is if it was too hard. So there's 4 quadrants. One is like, one is dislike, one is easy peasy, and one is hard. And you can draw on this side. And if I try to put an interaction every 2 or 3 slides, because I do, as a professor and a high school teacher, I do sometimes have to be the talking head, but assuredly I will ask them questions the whole time. Now, I told you we're going to talk about literacy then and now. What has changed in 300 years in education? We still sit in rows. We still use textbooks and discipline in a manner that is reminiscent of the industrial model. Kids are in the factory. We move them about in the school by ages and batches and the year that they were born. However, we know developmentally that age is just a number. But we still have traditionally a public school will group kids by age. And what do we have in America today? I call it a Swiss cheese education. And by that, I mean, if you were sick, absent, moved, transitioned from another country, um, came in the middle of the year for whatever reason, you had a suspension or whatever the reason is, you missed school and you missed that day's lesson or that week's lesson, and now you have this hole in your learning, and the teacher is not always trained to slow down and fill in those holes. And what I think the future of public education and all education is, it's open source, it's free, it's available everywhere to everyone. And that scares a lot of institutions. But if you look at many of the big respectable colleges and universities are already giving free content. So what are you going to do? Who were the influencers in America in the early 1700s? We have, of course, the Puritans, the Pilgrims, right? There's a picture on the screen that just looks like a bunch of Puritan men enjoying a drink. The Puritans are the first to teach morality and reinforce values using print. And Mother Goose was used to retell the French perspective. It's in this time period that the fairy tale comes to life. So, Mother Goose and the Golden Egg is one of the first books that get distributed that we can allow books to be more affordable. So the printing press and the changes in technology allowed us to be able to make books for pennies. Horn books were the first attempt to educate students, and what this was it was a printed sheet of text mounted on wood and then covered with translucent animal horn. So to me, it looks like a tablet or a phone, but with a wooden handle. If you're looking at the slideshow, I try to include a few different examples. This is where they taught maybe the Lord's Prayer or the alphabet, lowercase and uppercase. This could be numbers or vowel sounds or psalms or whatever they wanted it to be. Teaching numbers, teaching reading. This is the first tablet. It's called a horn book, but it's the first tablet. I mean, all we've done is integrate a whole lot of technology inside that wooden, device. That was the technology of the 1700s. And then we had our first chapter books, which were called Chap Books. And these cost pennies at the market. They were popular. The one I have on the screen is Jack the Giant Killer. It says the history of Jack the Giant Killer. And you might recognize Jack as Jack and the Beanstalk. He actually evolves into that story, right? But the songs and the short stories and the poems and the political treaties are what evolve so much of our education system. My last slide I kind of skipped over because I don't need a stretch break, but if you need a stretch break, take it. Just pause and stretch. I'm starting to lose track of which number it is. In a previous episode, I said that 93 million Americans couldn't read functionally enough to be successful contributors of society. Today, I'm showing what the basic reading skills are for a fourth grader. I'll make sure I put the camera so it's not blocking anything. First of all, they have to locate relevant information. Relevant meaning reliable and valid. We have to teach them what that means. Make simple inferences. Boy, a lot of mistakes can happen in making inferences, right? Climb that ladder. Then they have to be able to use their understanding of a text to identify details within that text that support a given conclusion or an interpretation. Also, they have to interpret the meaning of a word as it is used in text. So that's vocabulary, right? The problem is the 3 million word gap. The differences in socioeconomic status creates a huge gap for children living in poverty. And the data shows that it takes 3 years to overturn one bad teacher. 3 years to overturn one bad teacher. That's scary. That basic 8th grade reading skills, same as the 4th grade. Locate relevant information, make simple inferences. Now we have to identify statements of main idea, theme, and author's purpose. We up that. Also interpret the meaning of a word as it is used in a text. That's also the same as the 4th grade, but now of course those words in the text are at an 8th grade level and they get significantly higher and harder as you go. And then they have to state judgments and give support about content and presentation of content. Here's the problem. That's a lot to do in the 8th grade. And then that content of those texts get harder and harder. And what the research shows is 1/5 of US children live in poverty. And we've already said that poverty is a predictor of reading delay. Of developed nations, the US does not fare well. Sweden is number 1, meaning they have the least amount of children in poverty. Mexico is number 23, and the US is right below Mexico. So we have a dilemma because, and this analogy comes to my mind, and I know it's harsh, but I'm going to say it anyway. Genes load the gun, but your environment pulls the trigger. And given that I come from the county that had a tremendous tragedy, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas tragedy, I don't take analogies like that lightly. And I say it with complete sincerity. We cannot continue to not support students across the nation, no matter what neighborhood they live in, to be better readers. And here's the thing, if you want to know what standardized tests prove, they prove so much. They have so much amazing data. But here's what they prove. They prove the income of the families in the neighborhood of the school. And I'll just kind of like mic drop there for a second. That is such a shame. You feel me? I put my whole face on the camera for a second because next week we're going to go into what are the ways that every teacher in every class should teach reading. They should use before, during, and after strategies. And they're very specific strategies. And the ones I share will be research-based, evidence-based, peer-reviewed, and hopefully useful and worthwhile. However, the reliance on standardized tests and high-stakes tests in the classroom to determine the futures of students needs to be diminished. Yes, we need data, but we don't need as much data as we have. And we are constantly changing the test, and then teachers are trying to teach to the test. And I've been in the same county for 27 years. And we have like 4 or 5 different names of the state reading exam. And all I've seen it do is change ownership hands, but the content has remained much of the same standards. The only thing we've asked students to do a lot more of lately is writing, which I think is the best indicator of your reading and your ability is to write about it, write an essay. I know kids hate to hear that, but it's the truth. I can sum up your entire abilities in one paragraph and know where to help you do it every day. When students enter my class, I ask them questions, I see their writing style, and boom, I immediately know this kid needs Grammarly, this kid is ready for style and some of the harder ideas in reading and writing. It is what it is. I've been saying that a lot lately. What are we going to do? We've come a long way. We have a long way to go. And instead of going back to normal, how about we shine the apple? There's my apple. Shine the apple is another analogy, just like we don't have to reinvent anything, but we know what works and we know what doesn't. And to me, that the bell rings and you go to the next class and you better be ready for this teacher today. And I hope that teacher's in a good mood and I hope she's actually in class today because we have a problem filling classrooms in our county. We have a problem having enough substitutes in a building, K through 12. They're begging people to come work for our county because I shouldn't even go there, but because a lot of teachers are leaving the profession. It's just enough already, right? I wouldn't go back to a building if I weren't at a virtual school. I probably wouldn't even be in public ed anymore, because we have so far to go, and some of the people leading and in charge have no idea what they're doing. How can we get that to change? What else is possible? I'll end there. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I hope to see you next week. Take care. Where's the pause button? Ooh.